Poppy Playtime is currently teasing the release of its 5th upcoming chapter sometime in 2026. After the missed potential and subsequent disappointment of Chapter 4, fans have been eagerly awaiting the release of the 5th chapter, with 2 trailers and a few teasers here and there so far. However, while everyone else is speculating on the characters and settings of Chapter 5, I'm a lot more curious about the ending of Poppy Playtime as a series, as well as figuring out if Chapter 5 will actually be the last one. So I'm going to break down 5 potential ending categories for the series, as well as if Chapter 5 will truly be the end for Poppy Playtime. So strap on your grab packs and descend down to depths lower than the Earth's core at this point, so we can try and deduce how this 4-year-old series will make its grand conclusion. Before we discuss any endings, I want to discuss if Chapter 5 will actually be the last one for Poppy Playtime, or if the series will go beyond just 5 chapters. While I have seen some people try to argue for why Chapter 6 will happen, I firmly believe that Chapter 5 will be the grand finale. And here's why. First of all, Bendy and the Ink Machine, which has been the only other mascot horror game to release in chapters over a few years, had 5 chapters over its lifespan. Obviously, just because Bendy had 5 chapters doesn't automatically mean Poppy will, but with how many other similarities these games have, I wouldn't be surprised. Second of all, the fact that Huggy Wuggy's return was revealed at the very end of Chapter 4, to me signifies that this chapter will be the last one. As why else would you bring back the most popular character, if not for the conclusion of the story, as it would allow everything to end right as it started. Third, and most damning of all, is that I honestly don't think there's anywhere else to go after Chapter 5. Based on the marketing, it looks like Chapter 5 has us venturing into the labs of Playtime Co., where the experiments were created. And based on this, plus all of the other chapter locations, I don't think there's anywhere else for us to go. We've been to the factory where the toys were made, the game station where kids were tested to see if they'd make good experiments, the playcare where kids stayed before experimentation, the prison where failed/useless experiments were stored, and the labs where the children were turned into toys. Unless they just make up a new area for Chapter 6, I think the place where everything was created, being the final destination, would make a lot of sense. Now that we've established Chapter 5 as the last one, let's start with some ending theories. These endings would be pretty simple. We reunite with Poppy and maybe Kissy, and traverse through the labs, but right as we're about to reach our goal of escape and saving everyone, the prototype kills us, and we wake up as an experiment. In fact, we might even realize that many other people have tried the same thing as us, only to meet the same fate. And the moral here would be that the evil of Playtime Co. was too strong to defeat. I feel like this kind of ending is sorta possible, and would line up with some of the series' darker themes, but it would feel pretty unsatisfying and lame. Plus, assuming that the prototype just kills us and that's it, we wouldn't have any closure on Poppy, Huggy, etc. Finally, I don't think the prototype's motivations are as simple as continue experimenting and stop who gets in his way, given that he talks about building something for Poppy. So yeah, I see this ending as kinda possible, but not very likely. This ending is basically the polar opposite of the last one. Rather than being stopped from achieving our goals, we instead just get the most ideal outcome possible. Defeating the prototype, freeing the orphans Poppy mentioned in Chapter 4, and everyone escapes the factory and goes on to live a normal life. Obviously this would bring some nice closure, but as I mentioned, Poppy Playtime has covered some pretty dark themes over the years. So to have an extremely sweet and wholesome ending to cap it off would feel like a huge unnecessary tonal shift. Plus, it wouldn't even make sense for Poppy, Kissy, or anyone else to just go out into the real world, because they would just be picked apart and the cycle of experimentation would repeat itself. So this ending doesn't even make logical sense. While I'm sure this ending would make a lot of people happy, I think Mob can and probably will focus on having an ending that's both satisfying and actually realistic. Although I do see this as more possible than just being defeated. This group of endings basically revolve around the idea of Poppy Playtime's ending being some insane twist that completely recontextualizes the story. Going back to the bendy connections for a bit, if you've played the original Ink Machine, you know that that game ended with the reveal that the whole thing was just a time loop created by Joey to torture an inky version of Henry, meaning that none of the game's events happened within the real world of the Bendy universe. While, again, I'm not saying Poppy will just directly copy Bendy. After all, the cartoony art style of Ink Machine makes it understandable that the whole thing isn't real. But I do think it's possible for Mob to just come in with a big twist that completely wrecks everything, which could go a million different ways. Maybe the player is in hell for their sins. Maybe we've been hallucinating the whole thing with the red smoke. Maybe we died in the hour of joy and are a ghost. Maybe the whole thing was an in-universe video game similar to Help Wanted. Maybe there were never any orphans that survived in the first place. You could come up with a billion different twists to get a huge shock out of the fan base. And while I don't want the series to end this way, since it would be very cliche and lame, I can't lie that it's possible that it could happen. Although given the much more realistic graphics, and the fact that these endings usually suck, I think it's definitely possible, but not 100% confirmed. This category is similar to the last one, although the twist isn't as big. In a nutshell, someone betrays us or we betray someone else and join forces with another character. Although I think there are only two ways this could go down: Poppy betraying us and siding with the prototype, or we betray Poppy and side with the prototype. I think Poppy betraying us in the end would be pretty weird, as she already did it in Chapter 2, but I think the idea of us siding with the prototype could be pretty interesting. You could even have a prompt to choose who you're gonna follow. Go with Poppy and try to save everyone, or go with 1006 and try to kill everyone. I've even seen the idea that the player has been secretly working for the prototype this whole time, as we've kinda been doing his work for him by killing every major experiment that's still around. I think this style of ending could definitely be cool, but only if we're the traitor in the situation and join forces with the prototype. And now, it's time for the ending that I personally believe to be how Chapter 5 and this whole series will end. And that ending is... This one isn't a whole category of endings that are basically the same, but rather just one ending that I believe would be really satisfying. So here it is. After a long chapter of surviving threats like Huggy, Lily, and the prototype, the player and Poppy reach a large elevator shaft that will safely bring them and the orphans to the surface. However, it won't be possible to both leave this way and destroy the factory, which has been settled on blowing it up. After some thinking, our character finally speaks up, saying that because of all of the lives we've ended as an employee of Playtime Go, it's only fair that we give our life to save everyone. So we strap the bombs to our chest, wait for everyone to ascend up to the surface, and set off the dynamite, killing us, the prototype, and setting all of the spirits still trapped in their cages finally free for good. I think this ending would be a perfect bittersweet capstone to the Poppy Playtime saga, as we'd free all the innocents while sacrificing ourselves to set everyone free and try to atone for our horrible sins. As I definitely believe that the player was involved in some experimentation based on Chapter 3's dreams. Obviously, this is a huge oversimplification of events, but I think it would be an excellent general outline for the chapter's end. As I write this, Chapter 5 is slated to launch on February 18th of this year, which definitely has me a bit concerned, as that's only a month longer than Chapter 4's wait, which again had a lot of missed potential. Nevertheless, I'm still very excited to see how this story continues, and probably ends. I'm not sure what's in store for Poppy Playtime or Mob Entertainment after this, but I think a sequel game similar to Bendy and the Dark Revival would be really cool. But anyways, that's all from me. I'm Supersonic, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.